Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. This episode is brought to you by Valentix, your strategic growth partner. At Valentix, we believe that trust and authentic relationships are the only true currency in high-value business. We challenge the status quo by building an AI-powered client acquisition engine that enhances your human connection, helping you move beyond the slow growth of referrals. Our AI-powered systems eliminate the grind, allowing you to break through the noise, automate tasks, and free up your time to focus on transformative client impact. If you're ready to build a predictable growth engine, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Adam Swerdlow, the founder of Alpine Consulting. Adam's career is a dynamic study in fast growth and strategic execution, spanning high-stakes sales and growing The Chosen from employee number one to a $100 million annual revenue company. After leaving his executive role to escape the red tape, Adam now helps early-stage companies build operational infrastructure, raise capital, and scale. His insights into fast-paced growth, strategic risk, and preserving human capital will provide actionable wisdom for founders and leaders alike. Adam, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you on the show today. Now, Adam, your journey is a pretty unique blend of high-stakes sales, from selling insurance and copiers, as I believe it, to becoming the 0 to 1 guy who grew The Chosen to $100 million annual revenue. Tell us more about that journey and how it ultimately led to found Alpine Consulting.
So, yeah, it's been an interesting path. I love doing multiple things. In fact, I would consider myself a generalist. So, those early days, those early jobs, I'll call them jobs because those certainly weren't career paths for me way back when, were just me earning my stripes and knowing that it wasn't the last thing for me. I remember when I went to go sell copiers, I told myself it was temporary and that if I just did the things that I knew I needed to do, which was kind of pick up the phone, or actually when I sold copiers, go and drive to people's offices and try to meet with them. So like the old school door knocking, that it was just a stepping stone to something later in life that I would be more passionate about. I remember looking at the people around me and who were older than me, and I told myself, this is not where I want to be when I'm their age. Look, nothing against the decisions that those people made for their careers, but I knew for me that that's what I wanted, something better than that. So I think the mindset was just knowing that there's something bigger for me out there and just to earn my stripes. And I was only 22 at the time. So, I didn't know much. I know a lot more now that I'm 40, 18 years later.
Amazing. You mentioned earning your stripes there a couple of times, right? Now, a lot of people, I think, jump into entrepreneurship a little bit too early before they've earned their stripes. But at the same time, are you ever really ready for the jump into entrepreneurship? Because there's always more earning that needs to be done through mistakes, through lessons, through whatever it is, failures. Tell us a little bit more about what earning your stripes really looked like and how you knew when you were ready to make that transition for yourself.
Great question. I will say earning my stripes is basically, I equate that to learning the corporate life. So I had a boss. He told me when I needed to be in the office at a certain point in time, when I could leave the office, if I was out for the day making sales calls, knocking on doors, when I had to be back at the office. It was also developing relationships, not only with my coworkers, but with my clients as well, and kind of just learning the business world. And then also getting kicked in the teeth or punched in the mouth a few times. That's part of earning your stripes. So for all those people who have done door knocking before, they know getting thrown out of offices, maybe if you're knocking on doors for houses, getting thrown off of people's properties, that's part of earning your stripes. And you know what? It gives you tough skin later in life for you to deal with absolutely any situation. I agree with what you said. You're never really ready. It's just kind of when you make that jump. I would say that I made that jump in the perfect point in my career because I had the relationships and the business know-how in order to be more successful going independent or kind of being an entrepreneur. And so I think it's really important that you have those experiences of the corporate world, because I've worked with people who haven't and who jump right into entrepreneurship, and there's just certain things that are missing, whether it's decorum in meetings or whether it's business acumen that they just don't have. Yes, you can learn a lot by, reading up and ChatGPTing your way out of a lot of different things, but there's something to be said about actually experiencing it for yourself. I made the jump when I was almost 40 to pure entrepreneurship. So I had the relationships, which also help as well, and those are only built up over the course of time.
Yeah, you can definitely learn a whole lot by knocking on doors and, getting kicked in the teeth or punched in the mouth a few times, metaphorically, of course. But it's, as you said, through actually going through the actions and being in the environment where you can learn from the people who are perhaps doing what you'd like to do, or at least being in that environment, running a business being the ultimate goal, of course. So you made that jump close to 40 after you had enough lessons and experiences. But why leave the corporate world? You said, earlier on, it was never a career path. These were all just temporary situations. When did you ultimately decide that, or know entrepreneurship was what you wanted to pursue and that the corporate life wasn't for you?
I think the corporate life is still valuable to many people, so I don't want to diminish it. But for me, yes, I knew that I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And when you work for somebody else, it's somebody else's goals. It's somebody else telling you how much you can make. It's somebody else telling you what time you need to be at the office, as I alluded to before. And I think that I don't like that. When I lead people, I don't micromanage because I hate to be micromanaged. And so if you thrive on that and you need accountability like that, then that's, I applaud you and go for it. But for me, I want to be in control of my own destiny. So I learned that actually in the first two jobs. The first one, I sold copiers. I worked for a dealer. We were bought by a manufacturer. So I was told, this is what you're going to sell. And it didn't matter how much you liked Adam, you weren't buying the product if you didn't like the product. And then the same thing happened to the second company I went to, selling software. And I knew at that point that working for these corporations, they're going to do what's best for them, as they should, or their shareholders, as they should. But if I wanted to be in control of my own destiny, leaving the corporate world was kind of the best thing for me, the best path forward for me.
Absolutely. So you're talking about, being in control of your own destiny, how much you can earn, the decision to make, where you want to be, when you want to be there, and all of these things as well. It's hard for people to make the jump into that situation until they've learned certain lessons. And as we've said, part of that is perhaps being in the corporate environment. Through that time, what do you think was the most impactful moment or lesson, that growth shift that you made that allowed you to make the jump into entrepreneurship? Was maybe more confidently, perhaps with a little bit more skills than otherwise? What was that growth shift for you?
That's a good one, man. And it's really exciting for me to kind of look back on this moment. First of all, if you talk to anybody about selling copiers who've been in the sales world before, they'll tell you it's like selling ice to an Eskimo. So I did that for 3 years and did pretty well at it. And I think that's prepared me to make the shift. Early 2012, I was working for a software company, and I knew it was time for a change. There was a fork in the road, and I had a decision to make. There was two options. One option was to work in commercial real estate. I was living in Connecticut at the time. It would have required me to move to New York City or become a financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual. I decided to go financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual, and I wouldn't be speaking to you right now if I didn't make that decision, because my life would have been completely different. I wouldn't have my kids. I wouldn't have this house. I wouldn't have worked for The Chosen, because I would have chosen a different path. And the reason I chose that path is because it had the best of both worlds. It had the corporate backbone. So Northwestern Mutual, for those who don't know, is a big insurance company. And when you go work for them, you're what's called a statutory W-2. So you're 100% commission, but you still get a W-2. So there's still taxes taken out. They still offer healthcare. So there was a little bit of a corporate environment there. But I was the master of my own destiny, which is I was building my own business. So I had kind of this entrepreneurial environment, but inside a corporate environment. So I got the best of both worlds. I did 8 years there. I did really well. Most people fail out. 95% of people fail out in their first 4 years. I made it 8. And I decided to leave there as well because I knew I wanted more for myself. And there was a bit of red tape, as we had spoke about earlier. But that shift was deciding between commercial real estate and being a financial advisor. And then being a financial advisor led me to this place right here, right now, talking to you, amongst the other things that have happened between then.
Yeah, incredible. It sounds like the path that you choose, while providing you with some sort of structure in a sort of corporate environment, also gave you the freedom of building your own company in an entrepreneurial way or an entrepreneurial spirit within the framework, but also providing some sort of a safety net, right?
That's right.
Health benefits being one of these things that you mentioned. So you had a test entrepreneur environment, we could say, that led you to the position where you were ready to make out on your own. And you formed Alpine Consulting. Tell us a little bit more then. Alpine Consulting, you coined yourself as a little bit of a generalist when it comes to the companies that you're working with now. What does that mean? What are you actually doing with Alpine Consulting, and how are you helping your clients?
Well, I consult a myriad of clients, and I said this before, but the widget, the product doesn't really matter to me. You still need a strong foundation, and the foundations are relatively the same. Starting Alpine Consulting gave me the ability to help a bunch of different companies in a bunch of different verticals. So to give you an example, I'm working on a few different projects with them right now. One is a real estate development project. Another is a fractional consulting company helping them grow. I'm also working with a ministry. I'm also working with a tech company helping them scale their company. They're out of Waco. So all of these require a different skill set. And if I specialized in one thing, call it marketing, call it merchandise, consumer products, I wouldn't have the know-how to help all of these different companies. I wouldn't have the ability to work with all these different companies. And it's because of my past, it's because of the decisions that I made in the past that led me to this place right now, knowing that I love doing multiple things. I equate it kind of like this. You know that show Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe? But he does a different dirty job every episode. I love that. I love doing different things all the time. It keeps me learning. It keeps me fresh. Now, granted, I'm not doing dirty jobs like he's, jumping in sewers and cleaning that stuff out. But the point is that I'm doing something different every moment of the day, which keeps my brain going. I know that's what I need to keep me learning and keep me interested and keep me having fun in this environment.
Incredible. Well, you have to do something that you're excited about and that you're passionate about, and of course something that you're good at as well. But you may not be doing dirty jobs by way of, plumbing and cleaning out sewers, but perhaps you're doing the dirty jobs that business owners don't want to do, they're not good at, they're not comfortable with. So you're coming in and you're filling those gaps for them.
That's right.
Now, you're pretty broad with what you do. You are a generalist, so I'm sure how you help your clients is very holistic. But do you have any stories or examples that you could share with us of how you came in and you helped a client by wearing multiple hats and the outcome that you were able to help them achieve?
For sure. Well, we've already established that wearing multiple hats is something I love to do. So when there's a match on the client side, it's even more exciting. A couple of the clients that I've been working with were in need of kind of stripping everything down to the studs and then building it back from there. So sometimes you have a hard time seeing the reality when you've been in it for a long period of time. And when it's right in front of you, it takes an outsider's perspective, in that case me, to come in and say, hey, have you thought about these sort of things differently? Hey, I know these are tough decisions, but we need to cut these 5 people, right? When you've been in the business for a long period of time, you grow an attachment to these employees, you grow an attachment to the processes, and it's hard for you to separate yourself from those. It's kind of like when you get into a workout routine and then you work out with your buddy who does something completely different, you may have seen a growth shift. And so me coming in and helping, I'm thinking of 2 organizations, I'm not going to mention their names, where they were in dire need of kind of an overhaul. And I was able to come in and help them, again, rip it down to the studs. I treat the employees with dignity and respect, but sometimes it's essential to do a little bit of restructuring. And look, I've been restructured out as well, but I just want everybody to know that these are business decisions. These are not personal decisions. So what's most important is that the business survives, because when the business survives, then the people can survive as well. 2 organizations, desperate need of an overhaul, came in, was able to help them kind of rip it down to the studs, build it back, and we're actually doing better than we were prior. And then we can always hire those people back. That's the easy thing. If the organization's not around, you're not able to hire those people back.
With these 2 clients, I mean, you ripped it down to the studs, as you said. Some people had to be let go, right, in a very human way. And obviously, it's a business decision. And if the business isn't operating optimally and doesn't have profit, it's going to shut down potentially. So, but maybe better off for them in the future anyways. But anyways, I digress. You came in and you ripped it down to the studs. But, in doing so, how did you really identify that this was what had to happen? They really had to take it so far back and almost rebuild from a certain point.
We take a look at the financials. You can see what the burn rate is, right? Whether you're in the business world or your own personal world, the thing you have the most control over is how much money you spend. Right? And if you're spending too much, it's going to be really hard to keep up with that on the revenue side. It's a lot easier to cut your expenses than it is to go out and grab more revenue. Now, if you have some viral product or you're doing some crazy sale, you could, but that just hurts yourself down the line. So it's really controlling your spend and then kind of taking a step back, seeing how we got here, learning from those mistakes, and also figuring out what the true vision of the organization is, and then putting a plan together based off of that. And then looking at the individual departments and seeing where the most opportunity is. So for one of them, the opportunity was in fundraising. And there's multiple departments to work on, but this one was the lifeblood of the business. So first we cut expenses, and then we worked exclusively with the development department to make sure that their processes and the way that they were going out to bring in capital to the organization was dialed in so that the organization could survive. From there, we went department by department, fixing each one, and we're still in that process. We went one by one, starting with the essential cutting expenses and then working in the revenue generating departments to make sure that they could continue on, even though we had made these cuts prior.
It's pretty clear that taking a generalist approach, as long as you have, let's say, good quality hats to wear, can drive pretty significant and profound impact and results for your clients. Now, for the consultants and perhaps some coaches in the audience as well, who also take a similar approach, right? Wearing multiple hats, knowing that they can help their clients in many ways, it can be pretty difficult to really lead client acquisition with a targeted manner because you're so broad, right? There's some people in marketing who say that you have to be very specific, you have to have a defined niche. People won't buy unless they know exactly what they're buying and all of these things. And you're a clear case of that isn't necessarily inherently true. When we start looking at the state of the markets in 2026 and beyond, regardless if you're a specialist or a generalist, things are becoming more difficult, especially when it comes to revenue growth as a consultant. Client acquisition, whether it's scaling your company, building out sales processes, bringing in salespeople so that you can move out of being a founder-led sales company. Adam, you wear a lot of hats, so you understand pretty broadly what businesses need. When we look at client acquisition for consultants, specifically in 2026. What are you observing with your breadth of experience when it comes to the biggest challenges moving into 2026 for consistent client acquisition?
Going back to what we talked about earlier and earning my stripes and taking it in the mouth, part of that is building relationships. All of the clients that I work with now, I've had some sort of referral or personal relationship with. I've been very lucky to not cold call. I've done it before, as we said earlier in the show. I've showed up at your office before. I've also called you on the phone. I've never spoken to you before. So I had those skill sets, but I've been really lucky to just work on referrals and work with people in my network, whether it's second or third connections. So for me, that was really strong. Another reason why I liked transitioning to this full entrepreneurship later in my career is that I had these relationships to, when I was leaving The Chosen, to call them and say, hey, I'm leaving The Chosen. I'm starting my own thing. I'd like to work with your business. So, I think there's certain value to growing your network. It's your network. It's not your net worth, right? It will become your net worth later on. But I would encourage, the companies out there also, kind of we were moving on in this question, is you can always hire other consultants as well. I come in as a foundation layer, but if you need a specialist, there's plenty of specialists out there. Whether it's project-based, you can go on Fiverr and grab a web designer for a little project, or if you need someone with much more experience, you can go out there and find fractional support. I believe that fractional support is the way of the future. I think these companies with a ton of employees, I think it's a lot of overhead, it's very expensive, and if you can find fractional help, I think that's the way of the future.
Incredible. I love this, right? And it makes sense coming from you. You wear multiple hats, and you also know when not to wear a certain hat, right? When to look for someone else who can wear that hat for you, right? Look for those consultants. Look for people on Fiverr if you have a low budget and you're trying to start out, whatever it is. Or, there's some people on Fiverr who charge a pretty penny, but they deliver incredible services at the same time, right? So, Adam, you built your business on relationships, on referrals, on trust, on that network. Is that what you're planning on building Alpine Consulting on moving forwards? Or is there going to become a point when you feel it might be necessary to move beyond referrals and move towards scale?
For now, yes, I'm going to remain there. Scale would require me to bring on more people. I have members on my team, but most people want to work with me because of me. So the more project-based stuff, I'll be able to use other people on my team. But for now, it's just me while I build this brand. And then we can work towards bringing on more project-based work that I can equip an internal consultant on versus me being the one there. And I'll go out and do business development in order to bring in business for the firm.
Incredible. We're talking about strategy, when to wear certain hats, when to actually have someone else wear that hat, bring in someone from outside. We're talking about growth. One of the biggest opportunities for growth right now is AI, and how it is you're using it, how you're thinking about it, what you're outsourcing to AI instead of trying to do yourself. Adam, for somebody who understands business so broadly and deeply as well in very specific fields, where do you see AI starting to come into play the biggest advantage for Alpine Consulting? So perhaps you can leverage technology to focus on what really matters for your company.
I think this is not only for me, but for a lot of people, it's taking notes. So AI note takers are fantastic. Obviously, check with the other party to make sure that they're okay, that you're recording the calls. But that way you can focus on the genuine relationship that you're establishing with this person and performing active listening, because you're not worried about taking notes or jotting it down. So that's one, that's monumental. Two would be follow-ups as well. So taking those notes, organizing them into a follow-up, and then using that to communicate with the person on the other side of the phone or the Zoom call. Also, making decks. So making decks is a painstaking process. And if you can get an outline going and just feed it into something like Gamma. Gamma is another app that I use to make decks, whether we're fundraising, whether we're making a marketing presentation, whether we're presenting to the board. Gamma is a great option, or any other AI deck maker is a great option to just cut your time down. Time is a massive resource that you just don't get back. And so if you can leverage AI, not necessarily to replace jobs, because I still think that it's very important that we maintain jobs for humans, but just to make yourself and scale yourself, I think you're that much better off. So a lot of these are productivity tools with AI that I use. Some of it's financial analysis too. I found that some LLMs are better than others for financial analysis. So all of these things I'm using to just cut my time down so I can be more present with my clients.
That's it. You hit it right on the head, right? It's being able to use technology to offload these low leverage tasks that distract you and take your focus away from what's truly important, the clients, the relationships, the actual delivery of what your clients need, not just spending time, as you said, taking notes and splitting your attention. This is something that is fundamental, and people should never forget. The heart
Agreed.
of business is the people.
One more thing, you should never use it verbatim either. It's a great first draft, but you should never take what you receive from AI and then use that as your work product. It definitely needs to be tweaked. I want to caveat that for everybody out there.
I couldn't agree more, right? Especially when it comes to learning new things, right? If you're taking this verbatim and expecting this output from AI, whether you're learning marketing or sales or, client delivery strategy, it is a good starting point, but you need to cross-reference and you need to learn from people who have a higher level of intelligence and specificity than AI does, because AI is very broad in general. It can be specific, but it consolidates data from multiple different sources. So it's generalizing between those, of course. You want to find somebody, a source, a person, a business who you can trust, whether it's a fractional executive, an outside partner, or otherwise, to make sure that you are getting the right information and using it correctly as well, which is not directly what you were saying, Adam, but very closely related.
Yes, sir.
So you work with early stage businesses, Adam. A lot of early stage businesses are looking at AI as a tool that should be leveraged, and it should. But there's a couple of key considerations that they need to make along the way, right? Is this worth my time? Is this worth my money? Is it going to distract me from what I'm really doing? How do you advise founders to strategically fit AI into their business to enhance their human capital output rather than compromising their team structure and internal trust, or perhaps compromising their overhead with something they shouldn't be investing in at this time?
I think there's no one size fits all. And a lot of the people that I work with aren't even using it. So the first thing is to get them to start using it or know that they can use it, right? And that it's approachable. A lot of people are scared of it or just don't know how to use it. As long as you stay ahead of that curve, I think you'd be better off. But if you take the time to learn it, you take the time to learn which tools would be best for your business, because there's a million out there. A lot of them also back up to the same LLM too. So I always ask kind of what LLM is in the background here, because a lot of times it's ChatGPT. And you could just use ChatGPT off the shelf versus then buying something specialized on top of it. So it's really about sitting down with the company that you're working with, the founder, the visionary, or the co-founders together, or the board, and figuring out which tool would work best for them. And then gradually rolling it out while ensuring that we preserve human capital, right? Because that's an important piece of the business, right? Usually these businesses, or all the time, they start with humans. They need to end with humans as well. So let's just use it to aid ourselves and take them through kind of a regimented process to make sure that we're picking the right solution.
Adam, your story covers fast growth, strategic risk, and the importance of networking. For the founders and the growth-minded listeners who are striving to build resilient businesses and accelerate their impact, what's the single most important piece of advice that you would leave them with about calculated risk networking, and achieving predictable growth. There's a lot there, but one piece of advice that you think will really resonate.
Calculated risk. That's a good one you can use AI for. You can run a million permutations in AI and look at a bunch of different results. So you also need to take into consideration what type of business that you're in. Can it survive a hit that may not necessarily be catastrophic, but can hinder the business just because you wanted to try something? There's a lot to be said about A/B testing. So I think using AI to help you calculate your risk is super helpful. I sold insurance too, so make sure you have the right amount of insurance because that could be a safety net. And the second thing was networking. You should always get out there and meet new people. If you're feeling stale and you're feeling comfortable, that means that you're not growing. Get out there, meet new people. Put yourself in situations that you might not necessarily put yourself in. Try something new. Try paddleball. I don't know if you've never played paddleball before. You never know. You could meet your new best friend. So I've always been open to having any conversation with anybody. Going out and trying new things, and that's really what's helped me kind of take that next step is always meeting new people. Third thing, achieving predictable growth. So I would say looking back on what has worked before will help you achieve that predictable growth because you have empirical data to look back on. And then the second part of that is education. Never stop reading. Never stop listening to podcasts. Always be growing your mind. What worked yesterday won't work tomorrow. So you need to continue to educate yourself, or you may find that AI will outpace you and outwork you.
Adam, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your story with the audience today. For anyone listening who might like to learn more about Alpine Consulting, or perhaps they find themselves in need of a generalist just like you, what would be the best way to find you?
So you can email me, adam@alpineconsulting.co, or here's my phone number. And someone actually applauded me for leaving my phone number on another podcast. My phone number is 203-233-2423, 203-233. Call me, text me. If it's a spam call, I will certainly ignore it, but I'm happy to help you. Let's get on the phone. Let's make a connection, and let me see if I can help you grow your business.
Adam, thanks again for joining us on The Growth Shift.
Thanks, man.
Another powerful conversation on The Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on The Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.